Hello Papercrafters, welcome to another Design with Joe video. I'm glad that you joined in. Today we're going to make some watercolor backgrounds. So in order to do the technique we're going to do today, you need an acrylic block, you need a Stampin' Spritzer, you need some watercolor paper, and I've already cut some down, but this is how the watercolor paper comes from Stampin' Up. There are 5 sheets in here that are 6 by 9 inches, and it's almost a cold pressed paper because it's got some bumps on it. So if you have paper at home and it's really smooth, that's a hot press. This is more of a cold press, but it's about a 90-pound paper. So it works really, really well for watercolor. You'll get totally different effects if you use just plain Whisper white paper or a cardstock. So you need that, and we're also going to go with 4 colors today. We're going to have Crumb Cake, Pear Pizzazz, a Marina Mist, and just a touch of Dapper Denim. And then I always also have a paper towel at hand because we will need that just for wiping off of our block. Opened up all of my inks, and I'm using a D block, and so the point of the block is that we're going to get the rectangle shape in our background. If we add some more water, it could spritz out the outside edges, but to start with, this is what we're going to be stamping on. So we just take our classic ink, and we're going to start with our lightest color first, and the color down at the bottom for me is brown. So this is actually Crumb Cake. So I'm just going to put that directly onto the acrylic block, and then I'm going to pick up my Pear Pizzazz, and I've turned my block around so that my color is down on the left end, and I'm going to take my green, which is Pear Pizzazz, and I'm going to put it right over top. I'm going to go right into where the brown is. I think you can probably see better down there, and I'm just going to pat that on as well, and I don't go right to the top. It's okay if I have some of those little holes left there because they will fill in when we add the water. The next color I'm going in with is Marina Mist, and the exact same technique. I'm just going to pat that on top, and I do have some holes there. I think you can see that on the white, and I'm just going for a tiny little touch of the darker blue just along the upside edges there. Okay, so you can probably see that I have my ink all over my acrylic block, and I'm going to take my Stampin' Spritzer now. I'm going to put my watercolor paper on top of my piercing mat, and I'm going to hold my spritzer about 6-7 inches away, and I usually always hold it a little bit on an angle. I'm right-handed, so it's in my left hand, the block, and then I'm going to spritz directly on top of the block. And I don't want my spritzer to be too close because that will really move the water and create a little bit of a hole there. So you want to be back a little bit so that you get more of a mist going over top. So I give it a good, I don't know, 4 or 5 spritzes. Make sure that you have it everywhere, and you might be able to see that already the color is running. So I'm just going to turn that upside down, and I'm going to place it directly on top of my paper, my watercolor paper, and I'm going to hold it in place for a little bit. And you probably notice that real shooting of the color from one side to the other. I'm going to lift that up, and it creates almost these rivulets here, and I quite like those. So that's our first impression. It's going to be a little bit darker than some other ones. I have lots of ink still left on my block. I'm going to put that aside and let it dry. I'm going to actually spritz it again, and I'm going to get a second impression, a little bit lighter impression probably, and that's okay, but I'm using the same size paper, and I'm going to place it straight down, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm applying a fair bit of pressure onto my block here, and then you're going to lift straight up, and this time I have something a little bit lighter. Now this time I'm going to go in, because this ink is still wet, I'm going to spritz directly on top of it. And when I do that, it just livens up the color. It also allows some of the ink to spritz off the edges. And I actually quite like that look. If you don't like that look, then don't do the spritzing afterwards. But I really like that it sort of is, I have no control over it at this point. You're never going to get 2 that look exactly the same. So you can probably see that there's a fair bit of water lying on it now. If you don't want all of that water, you can actually go in with just the tip of your paper towel and just pick up a little bit of the water. I usually let mine sit because I don't mind all the colors mixing. So while it's still wet, I can move some of that color around. You can probably see the blue here is moving a little bit further into the green. But I always let mine dry naturally. I don't tend to use a heat gun on mine. I find that when I do that, although yes, it dries it quite a bit quicker, it leaves hard edges, hard lines, and I like the softness of the color when it dries on its own. So I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to let these dry, and then I'm going to come back and show you the rest of the card. Welcome back. And with the magic of video, we're able to see that our paper has dried. So here was our first impression. It's quite dark. I love all of these little lines in here. It looks like quite a tumultuous sky, something like we had in Alberta last week. And this one here is still just a little bit damp, but you can see how different, how quite light it is. Very, very soft in comparison to this one. And you can also see how there's harder edges on this one because I did not spritz it, and how these ones have run a little bit outside the edges. So now we're just going to finish off our card. So I've put away some of my colors. I've kept my Pear Pizzazz, and I've kept the Dapper Denim, and I've also brought in Early Espresso. And I'm going to first of all do my words, and I'm going to do my words just to make sure that I have enough room for my chair. And this is all of these stamps are out of the Colorful Seasons stamp set. And I'm going to put my You Make Me Smile down on the bottom. I'm just going to stamp that in the Dapper Denim. And then I'm going to go in, and this is two-step stamping. I'm going to go in with my chair. So this is the outline of my chair in Early Espresso. And you can see that we're missing the inside part, and that's where the two-step comes in. So I've just inked up the inside, and I'm going to lay that over top. And there's actually, you can see, it's great looking through these photopolymers and the acrylic pads, because you can see right through them, and you should be able to get it right on top. I've laid that softly on top. Now I'm going to press it a little bit harder, and you can see that I've got my exact chair. I'm also going to put in a little bit of grass in here. So I've got my Pear Pizzazz. I'm going to stamp it off a little bit because I just want my grass to be very faint. I just want it to be there. I don't want it to be very dark. So there we have it. So there's our card. So now I'm just going to put it on top of my card. I've already taken a piece of Dapper Denim and put on a piece of the Early Espresso. When I have my heavier weight cardstock, the watercolor paper, what I want to use is my fast fuse or Terran tape, or if you want your liquid glue. I just find that it actually holds it a lot better. So with the fast fuse, it goes on really, really quickly, and you want to give it a nice flick off to the side when you're done, and then just lay this over top. Okay. Now it's your turn to pull out your acrylic blocks and your stamps and your inks and give this a try yourself. Make some that are darker with your first impression, or lighter. You might even get a third impression out of it. Most of all, just have fun. Thanks very much, and we'll see you again at Design with Jo.